Well, I grew up on the farm in the Dust Bowl of Oklahoma, and born in 1921, and joined first I went to St. Joseph, Missouri, and I lived with a half-sister, and I got a job working in a woman's hat factory, and when they quit making felt hats and started making straw hats, I was phased out of a job. So I joined the Navy, and I was sent to Seattle first, and was in VP 43 for a while, Patrol Squadron 43, and then they came in for a draft for Panama Canal Zone and Pearl Harbor, and I was placed on the Pearl Harbor draft. And I went out in October 40, I think it was, and they assigned me to Patrol Wing 2, and from there I went into VP 22, Patrol Squadron 22, PBY 3 flying boats.
And you were on Ford Island?
Ford Island. And so we were there when the attack came off in 1941, and we lost most of our planes there at that time, and they outfitted us with a Sikorsky transport plane, and we went out looking for the Japanese, and they had little portholes in the windows, and stick a .30 caliber gun out of that in case we saw something. And then from there our squadron was transferred to the Dutch East Indies in 1941, I guess it was. Right, it was right after the attack. And so we transferred out to the Dutch East Indies. We joined Patrol Wing 10 that had been in the Philippines. They'd been forced out of there, so our first flight in was to Ambon on the island of Ceram, and when we landed on the water there, the Japanese attacked us, and we wound up on the mud flats, couldn't go anywhere, so we had to abandon the plane and wade ashore. And one of the guys he was one of the people in the ground force. We had 8-man crew, and we had 2 extra people in that were service people there. So he was a tall one, about 6 feet tall or more. And we had an extra 50 caliber machine gun in the plane, so I handed that out to him, and I was trying to catch up with him, and they called me Pinky then, because there was a Pinky Higgins of some sort, and they hung that name on me. So anyway, Pinky helped me carry this, and I never did catch him till we got to the beach, and we tried to set it up on a big boulder there, and we couldn't do that, so we just hunkered down till the attack was over. And then one of the guys that joined our group, he had been to the advanced radio school in Washington, D.C., and Casey was his name, and they clipped his belt on, so he just about lost his pants. So he had a near miss. So I didn't get a scratch the whole war, but probably maybe missed it that much. So anyway, we were there at Ambon, and flying patrols out there through Macassar Straits. We called it Cold Turkey Lane, because for PBY all by itself, it was cold turkey. If we saw any Japanese aircraft, and if we saw something there, we said, well, we count 10. If it hasn't flapped its wing, it's not one of ours. So if we could duck into the cloud cover, we would do that. So anyway, we had no air cover. We were just one plane out there by herself. So our job was to locate, give course and strength and course and speed for what their vehicle, the vessels were traveling, and then go on, and hopefully the Army Air Corps or the ships would take care of them. And I know one time after the Japanese had occupied Makassar Straits there on both sides, on Borneo on one side and the Celebes on the other, I think it was. Well, they had some destroyers come down through there, and they were firing torpedoes on each side to the beach there, to the forces, the Japanese forces, and they wound up shooting at each other. It was they were firing from both sides, so they were firing at the vessels that were going through, as the destroyers, I think, that went through there. So, and I think that's about the only time we wound up with under attack, but we lost our plane, and we had to wait ashore there. So we evacuated to Surabaya, Java, and then from there they pulled everything out of our forces out of Java, and we went back to the west coast of Australia, and then went down through the Tasman Straits, I think it is, and over to the east side, and forgot what town that was there now, but anyway, we went into there, and then the transport came through, and we got aboard that and came back to we started east. I figured we're going through the Panama Canal and going over to the east coast, but when they got about due south of San Francisco, well, they did a 90-degree turn to port, and we headed for San Francisco, and they offloaded at Treasure Island, and then we were reassigned to. All of us had been out 2 times before. Well, we got shorted, and I was assigned to Lake City, Florida, and to Jacksonville for assignment, and from there they assigned me to a satellite station out at Lake City, which is about 60 miles west of Jacksonville, and that it was I guess about intermediate training, I think it was. They were doing bombing practice and stuff from out there, but so that's where I wound up the war, in my part of it.
When did you go to the Aleutians?
Again?
When did you go to the Aleutians Islands?
Aleutians?
Yeah.
That was in 1943, I think it was. Yeah, I believe 43. It was about when we were operating out of Amchitka and covering the Army Air Corps when they were going in and bombing Kiska. So if anyone went down, well, we hopefully will be able to pick them up. And
okay.
Then I think there was one single float plane that had been shot down there, but somehow or other he drifted on down through, and I don't know what happened to him, but it was a single seater. And so,
how long were you in the service?
19 years, 6 months, and 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
I qualified for 20, which was a half pay. So I had 3 offers of jobs. So I went to Babcock Radio Engineering and I guess Newport Beach or Costa Mesa. Anyway, it was on the border there. And
you were a resident of Costa Mesa.
Costa Mesa, lived on
Right.
the cul-de-sac there. We picked out the spot where the house was gonna be built.